When Ellis Cook moved to Compton in 1962, it was a time when whites and blacks peacefully coexisted. That, however, was a very unique, sandwiched in period for the city before the court struck down racially restrictive covenants, deeds that prohibit blacks and other races from living on a property. In 1948, Compton was white, really white. After white flight, Compton became a dream for wealthy black Americans. Then came the 80s and crack. The crack epidemic devastated Compton's thriving black middle class by fueling violent gang turf wars, inducing severe addiction, and dismantling local businesses. The influx of cheap, addictive cocaine combined with industrial job losses created a drug economy that transformed suburban neighborhoods into areas of high crime, sparking massive middle-class flight. Systemic neglect. The crisis was treated with heavy-handed policing rather than public health, resulting in massive incarceration rates that ripped families apart. Infrastructure decay. Lost tax revenue meant local government could not maintain schools, parks, or safety, changing the reputation of the city, which had previously been a symbol of black suburban prosperity. I'll be back. Hello everyone. Let's just jump into this video. Compton. If you have ever went to Compton, lived in Compton, been through Compton before crack, you would understand why I'm doing this video. I had an auntie that lived in Compton before crack, and that's why it's so damn sad. Terrible how Compton changed and what Compton looks like today. It don't even look like a skeleton. It looked like a wasteland. Real talk. Okay, let's go on. It's difficult to overstate how white Compton was in the early 50s and late 40s. Exclusively white with an extraordinary web of racially restrictive covenants with a very aggressive policing strategy about keeping black people out, explained historian Josh Size, the director of the Center for Southern California Studies at CSU Northridge. There was no more effective tool in the 20th America than the racially restrictive covenant in terms of keeping neighborhoods white, and Compton was not unique in its application of covenants. There were very few neighborhoods in Los Angeles or Southern California generally in which there was not a restrictive web of covenants established. What's so crazy and ironic is how they fought tooth and nail to keep black people out of certain cities and communities, and now look at it. And then the thing is, when white people fled and black middle class, wealthy, politically powerful people moved into Compton, Compton was that place. It wasn't run down. It was very well maintained because there were rich middle class people, black people that lived in that city. Look at it now. But you talk about black America. Oh my God. I'm just starting this video. I'm only 5 minutes into this video. Let's go on. I have a question. And I'm very serious about this question. Black Americans are people who are into Black American history. which was worse, crack cocaine or slavery? Let's go on. Put your answers in the comment. Let's go on. The crack cocaine epidemic in the 80s acted as a seismic event for Black communities in Los Angeles and Compton, fundamentally altering the social, economic, and legal landscape for generations. It never came back. Compton never bounced back. Public health resources were overwhelmed. The rapid spread of addiction led to a rise in prenatal complications, often sensationalized as crack babies, and increased rates of violence associated with the drug distribution. In Los Angeles and Compton, the crack trade became inextricably linked with street gang culture. The competition for turf transformed localized rivalries into high-stakes, well-funded conflicts. Materialization of territory. The influx of cash allowed gangs to trade low-caliber weapons for high-powered firearms, leading to a dramatic spike in drive-by shootings and homicides. Neighborhood isolation. For residents of Compton and South Central, daily life was often dictated by gang boundaries, limiting freedom of movement and creating a constant state of hypervigilance. The legislative response to the crisis, most notably the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986, created a massive sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine, the 100-to-1 rule. The impact of disparate sentencing, because crack was cheaper or more prevalent in Black urban centers, while powder cane was associated with wealthier white populations, the war on drugs resulted in the mass incarceration of Black men. And I did a video exposing the truth behind who were the true addicts of crack. It wasn't Black folks. Yeah, the Black dudes was in them streets deep slanging it, but the addicts were white suburban America. And I'm going to attach the video in the description. Let's go on. Now let's talk a little bit about the history of Compton. Compton, California originated in 1867 when 30 pioneer families led by Griffith Dixon Compton settled in the area after traveling from Stockton, California. The settlement was initially called Gibsonville, then Comptonville, and was eventually shortened to Compton in 1887 to avoid confusion with another city of the same name. The families were seeking new opportunities outside of California gold fields. The land they purchased was part of the larger Rancho San Pedro land grant originally given to Juan Jose Dominguez by the Spanish Crown. Initial hardship. The first settlers faced difficult conditions, including cold, wet weather, and a flood that threatened their new community. The town was first named Gibsonville after one of the landowners, but was later renamed Comptonville in honor of Griffith Dixon Compton. It was shortened to Compton in 1887 and officially incorporated as a city in May 1888 with a population of 5,000 people. The first city council meeting was held on May 14th, 1888. In 1890, a series of votes were held by the residents of Compton with the aim of shedding significant portions of the city. By the end of the year, Compton was down to only 80 acres of land, with 5 remaining voters residing within that territory. Due to the limited number of people able to fill positions within the city government, Compton effectively ceased to exist as a functioning city. By 1906, lawyers Emmett Wilson and E.T. Shearer filed suits to nullify the 1890 elections, which in turn restored Compton to a size of 600 acres. Compton was reborn with elections held to fill open positions. The ample residential lots of Richard Form's gave residents enough space to raise a family and food to feed them, along with building a barn and caring for livestock. The farms attracted the black families who had begun migrating from the rural South in the 1950s. And there they found their home away from home. Compton could not support large-scale agricultural business, but it did give the residents the opportunity to work the land for their families. The 1920s saw the opening of the Compton Airport. Compton Junior College was founded, and city officials moved to a new city hall on Alameda Street. On March 10, 1933, a destructive earthquake caused many casualties, schools were destroyed, and there was a major damage to the central business district. While it would eventually be home to a large black population, in 1930, there was only one black resident. In the 1950s, middle-class black families began moving into the area, mostly on the west side. Compton grew quickly throughout the decade. This is partially due to its proximity to Watts, where there was an established black population. The eastern side of the city was predominantly white until the 1970s. Despite being located in the middle of a major metropolitan area, thanks to the legacy of Griffith D. Compton, there still remains one small pocket of agriculture from its earliest years. During the 1950s and 60s, after the Supreme Court declared all racially exclusive housing covenants, title deeds, unconstitutional in the case of Shelley versus Kramer, the first black families moved to the area. Compton's growing black population was still largely ignored and neglected by the city's elected officials. Centennial High School was finally built to accommodate a bouldering city population. A black man first ran for city council in 1958, and the first black councilman was elected in 1961. It's a series on Netflix, isn't it? It's called Them, I believe. I tried to watch a few episodes of it, but it was just too much for me. Just to see what those black people went through. And then today, it's just baffling how the script got flipped and black people were called violent. You just really didn't see and know about the history of violence afflicted upon black Americans by white people, like white on black violence. Like that just never existed. And then somehow it got flipped and black people became the most violent group in the country, in the world. Wow, if you think about it like that, it's laughable. It's like that is some serious mind effing to flip it that hard, to just try to ignore centuries and decades of violence against black folks and then flip it and make yourself look innocent, like you don't even have it in you to harm an ant. That's some serious mind effing, voodoo, witchcraft, all the above. In the 1960s and 70s, young black middle class families flocked to Compton for the opportunity to live in a progressive black space created by black businesses and civic and political engagement. After decades of battling overcrowded housing conditions due to federal redlining, guidelines, segregation, discrimination, and exploitation of tenants and homeowners, the Supreme Court ruled in 1948 that racial covenants were unenforceable, opening new neighborhoods to black homebuyers. One of those new neighborhoods was the west side of the city of Compton, California, in the late 40s and early 50s. The city of Compton, a Republican Party stronghold, was nearly all white and very Mormon. 2 years prior to the Supreme Court ruling in 1946, Ms. Velma Grant, a real estate agent who had come to California from Louisiana, described renowned black architect Paul Williams as that dynamo of a black woman, developed a neighborhood on the northwest border of the city of Compton in the unincorporated area known as Willowbrook. I did not know that a black woman designed Willowbrook. The neighborhood named George Washington Carver Manor or Carver Manor, was designed by Williams for Miss Grant, whose watchwords during construction were equality materials and quality workmanship. By the early 1950s, 300 home-owning black families lived on the northwest border of Compton. This enraged some white residents of Compton, who then organized to keep the Negroes north of the Compton-Willowbrook border. In 1954, in an added effort to contain black residents to the west side of the city, Compton built Centennial High School within blocks of Carver Manor. By the early 1960s, the west side of Compton became predominantly black. They said, let's build them a high school so they don't have to come east. Let's get on this like right now. That's how you can get them to move. You notice that, right? And less than 20 years after Velma Grant built Carver Manor on the edge of the city of Compton to counter racist housing restrictions, the black community stretched from Carver Manor on El Segundo Boulevard and Central Avenue on Compton's northwest border to Compton's Richland Farms on Compton's southwest border. In 1963, Douglas F. Dollarhigh became the first black man to be elected to the Compton City Council. On Central Avenue at 137th Street, Woodley Lewis, a former LA Rams football player, opened Sportsman Ball, a brand new modern bowling alley, coffee and shop and cocktail lounge, which years later became the famous Skateland USA roller rink, a launch pad for hip-hop's legendary NWA. Next door, another black entrepreneur, Walter Dootsy Williams, opened Duty Music Center, which included office space, an auditorium, and recording studio where several popular recording artists recorded, including the Penguins, the Platters, and comedian Red Fox. On 137th Street, a block west Central Avenue, Sam Littleton established Littleton's Patio, which was the site for many political fundraisers, strategy sessions, and community events. There was also an array of churches, chicken and rib joints, and black-owned retail outlets. Black middle-class families flocked to Compton for its housing, good schools, and the opportunity to live in a progressive black space. Compton became known in the black community as that gem on the southern end of Central Avenue. Malcolm X visited in the early 60s, as did Martin Luther King Jr. One Christmas. The Compton Black Chamber of Commerce brought in the boxing great Archie Moore to play Santa Claus to the children who had never seen a black Santa Claus before. Muhammad Ali and the multi-talented Eartha Kitt were frequently seen in Compton and Watts. As many white residents were not happy with the demographic change, some showed disdain by being rude or nasty. Some tried to be good neighbors, and others eventually fled the city. In the schools, white teachers had issues with teaching black children, while police community relations were strained as usual compared to the surrounding police departments such as Los Angeles, Linwood, Inglewood, Long Beach, Southgate, and the Los Angeles County Sheriff. The Compton Police Department didn't seem as brutal. The Compton Police Department was disbanded in 2000 and replaced by the LA County Sheriff's Department. This did not mean that the Compton chapter of the National Association for Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, was not busy fielding discrimination and harassment complaints. Even though West Compton was majority black, until the early 1970s, East Compton remained majority white and hostile to the black community. Black people were made to feel unwelcome in white establishments, such as the bowling alley on Rosecrans Boulevard. In 1964, Dr. Ross Miller, then the new chief of surgery at Compton's Dominguez Valley Hospital, wanted to buy a home close to the hospital on the east side of the city. After identifying a suitable home through his real estate agent, Dr. Miller met the seller, who promptly called off the sale because he did not want to sell to a black man. Dr. Miller had a white colleague buy the house and quitclaim the deed over to him. This outraged and motivated him to get involved in local politics. He would later become president of the Compton School Board and the architect of Compton's first majority black city council. In 1968, Dr. Miller's political activism took him to the Ambassador Hotel as a delegate on a warm night in early June, as the votes were tailored in favor of Senator Robert F. Kennedy in the California Democratic presidential primary. Shots rang out and there were calls for a doctor. Dr. Miller identified himself and sprang into action to render aid, but was stopped several times because the security had a hard time believing that this young black man was a doctor. Despite all of the racial turmoil, many black people who grew up in the city of Compton during that time enjoyed their childhood and described it as almost idyllic, playing with friends, raiding fruit trees, racing model cars at the Rosecrans Raceway, going to the movies downtown, or at the Tower Theater on Long Beach Boulevard. Parks were supervised, and so were the basketball and football leagues. There was also Little League Baseball. The schools and churches supported Boy Scout troops that were very active and included hiking and camping in the local mountains. There were church picnics and community Christmas plays at the local park, and of course, the Compton Christmas Parade. For the black middle class, Compton was the place to raise a family. We should go take Compton back. I'm serious. I remember my auntie lived in Compton during that time. Compton was middle class. It wasn't all this BS going on in Compton. And it was majority black, wealthy, rich, middle class people that lived in Compton. We allowed these people to come in and do this to our communities, black folks. Take it back. Go out there and get involved in city council. Okay, let's go on. In the 1960s, as the demand for freedom and equality increased in black communities across the country, the manifestation of the racial inequalities and racist police confrontations appeared right next door to the city of Compton. Like a festering wound of social neglect and fascist policing, the Watts district of Los Angeles exploded in 6 days of righteous indignation and rebellion for the years of discrimination in housing, lack of services, and the brutal tactics of the Los Angeles Police Department. Out of the Watts rebellion came a new black consciousness that was birthed in its fire. That September, as black students went back to school, it was with a new swagger and anger that said, "You will not ignore me." Even Negroes west of the 110 freeway became black men from Watts. The youth were no longer willing to listen to the old guard civil rights organizations such as NAACP and Urban League, and no longer willing to accept the leadership of the Negro preachers and politicians. New grassroots community organizations came into existence. At this time, many of them in the mold of Malcolm X. Those were more militant organizations, drew the ire of the local police, who were used to unquestioned control of the streets in the black community. The most effective of those organizations was the Southern California chapter of the Black Panther Party. Their Central Avenue headquarters had been attacked in the early morning hours of December the 8th, 1969 with dynamite and over 300 LAPD troops, which included multiple tactical teams, in a murderous 5-hour assault that took place just days after the Chicago murder of Black Panther Party leader Fred Hampton. After weathering years of attacks by the LAPD and other agencies, the chapter moved its headquarters to the city of Compton. And here's the thing. Ain't none of you groups have been done as horrific as black Americans. None of y'all. So when we was telling y'all what was going on, and you guys told us to shut up and stop complaining, let's go on. As black revolutionary organizations soon found out Compton was not Watts, these were not black people who were unhappy with the system. Rather, black people who were unhappy that that they were not part of the system. In the early 70s, the city of Compton was becoming a citadel of black political power in Southern California. Late in 1969, then City Councilman Douglas F. Dollarhide, the son of a formerly enslaved person, became mayor of the city of Compton, the first black mayor of a major municipality west of the Mississippi River. He was greeted with a majority of black school board and city council. He later appointed the first black police chief, fire chief, and school superintendent in California. This led to a black cultural renaissance in the city that included the Compton Community Arts Academy, the Paul Robeson Players, and the development of many actors, musicians, and athletes. Compton College at that time had a great diversity of students from all around the world and was known as a gateway to UCLA. Tony Brown's Black Journal filmed an episode about Compton, broadcasted in 1972. It includes interviews with community members, Mayor Dollarhide, and Compton Community Arts Academy founder John Outerbridge. The majority of the black leadership in the city of Compton at that time had been active as members of the local NAACP. Predictably, they could not visualize a different type of city other than what had been offered under the former white administration. Their aim was to be competent, to show the world that black people could self-govern. When the Dollarhide administration arrived at Compton City Hall, they found that the city's finances were already in a disarray because of the lack of tax revenue and pending debt from bonds issued to modernize and rebuild after the 1933 earthquake. The Dollarhide administration began to look at nearby county areas to annex to the city because of their light manufacturing, but the county ultimately thwarted those plans. Under the Dollarhide administration, the city developed Walnut Industrial Park project, one of the largest business parks in the western United States. But transforming city finances would take time, and the looming financial crisis was right in front of them. Unfortunately, the white supremacist narrative was not to be denied. According to that narrative, black people could not self-govern. In 1969, white people did not believe that a black man could quarterback an NFL football team, let alone run a city. This is 4 years before Tom Bradley became mayor of Los Angeles, and unlike Dollarhide, he did not have a majority black city council or school board. By 1970, Malcolm X was dead, and so was Martin Luther King Jr. The FBI's counterintelligence program, whose motto was to disrupt, discredit, and destroy, began to focus on black politicians and political organizations and wreak havoc in the black progressive community, including California's black city, Compton. That's why they brought in crack. Compton was getting beside itself. If we allow Compton to continue to grow and be self-governed by black folks, this is going to destroy our narrative that black people are inferior and we're superior. By the mid-1970s, Compton was over 75% black. Soon the city's neighboring Compton, whose main street had been Compton Boulevard, were changing the name of the street in an effort to disassociate themselves from the city. To the west, Compton Boulevard became Marine Avenue, and to the east, Compton Boulevard became Somerset. The white flight of the mid to late 60s damaged the city's financial standing with the loss of small businesses and sales tax that they generated. I told y'all, when these white people left the city, so did the money. And then you know how they did black people when it came to bank loans and this and other things. They was on their own. That's how the cities and communities became slums. The bonds that were used to rebuild downtown Compton after the 1933 earthquake became due. At the same time, during a time of high interest rates and recession, homeowners were losing their homes because of the predatory loans and balloon payments that had come due. This led to a crash of Compton's housing market, loss of property taxes, and a high vacancy rate that left many abandoned homes. See how they made it? White flight came, bankrupt the city. People lost their property, homes, and look who came in. Let's go on. In the 80s, the crack epidemic devastated Compton's thriving black class by fueling violent gangs. I read that initially in the beginning of the video. So you see how it was done. It was systemic. Black Compton was thriving. White people was like, in the money. And that should have been illegal in itself. That should have been illegal in itself, because all the resources that was generated in Compton was not only generated by white people. It was black people and their taxes. But you see how they set it up where it doesn't matter how much taxes we pay into the pot. They're going to take it all. If they want to take it all, they're going to take it all and leave you with nothing. I would have put all kind of lawsuits on this government if I was the mayor. You gonna give us our money back. You're not gonna have us sitting here looking stupid. Black America, the ones who were devastated by crack. Why didn't you guys bring a lawsuit like these white folks brought a lawsuit to pharmaceuticals? Why you guys didn't sue this government for what they did in your communities with crack and disenfranchisement and segregation? Big white families fleeing certain areas and leaving you high and dry. Why didn't you guys sue? Okay, let's go on. The dream of suburban home ownership in Compton seemed to disappear into a puff of smoke, literally and figuratively. I just added that, literally and figuratively. Local manufacturing jobs that had been plentiful on the Alameda corridor left for other countries and were replaced by a destructive cane economy. Cane economy. Results of the foreign policy of the Reagan administration. The resulting rug wars in Compton and throughout South Central Los Angeles created black middle class flight. Because of the loss of property taxes and sales tax, the city could no longer maintain schools and parks. Walking to the store became dangerous, and sending children to the local park was out of the question. All of those forces turned Compton's black middle class suburban dream into an urban nightmare. Compton had been redefined as a place of crime, corruption, and incompetence, a self-fulfilling prophecy of the white supremacist narrative. Although Latinos are the majority of the population in contemporary Compton, they still lack significant political power or representation. 31-year-old Aja Brown, an African-American woman, I don't know if she's African-American like for Africa, or they are still calling her African-American and she's Black American, was elected mayor in 2013 and re-elected in 2017. While there has been a significant decrease in crime, unemployment remains high and the median income continues to fall. Compton continues to struggle. Oh, that was terrible. Terrible. Yep, they did it in such a sneaky, slick, slimy way. How they did Compton. Took the money and then they came in and opened the floodgates and crack came streaming in. And then after that, it was a Mexican takeover. I don't even think we need to do it, because the way this country, the way it's going to turn out, a lot of things that was taken from us, they're going to be begging us to take it back. Like, who, please take this back, please. I'm not playing either. Okay, taken, stolen from us, snatched. All right, folks, I hope this you learned something from this video. Send this video to people who enjoy hearing about the history of Black America, the history of California, and such and such. Thank you for your time, commenting, liking, and subscribing. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.